Welcome to Let's Stitch a Year of Stars. I am so excited to share with you today the Midnight Star. I love this block. I love all these blocks. What am I saying? I think they're all awesome. But today that's when we'll be stitching out, and I can't wait to share it with you. Before we start stitching though, there's a few things I want to tell you about. Not only do we have really awesome workbooks that are companions to this class, we also have most of the notions that I am using throughout this whole entire stitch along available for purchase over on our website, peaceandquilt.com. Now, the thread that I'm using here on the top is So Fine, the color number 402. I'm using it across my whole entire quilt top. If this were not a stitch along sample, I may have switched thread colors and used a few different colors on some of the dramatically different colors like the blues and different things like that. But using those white colors here on this quilt, it's easier for you to see it on camera. So that's why I have used the white color throughout the whole entire quilt. But really, honestly, overall, it looks awesome. The So Fine thread blends so nicely that you still end up with a really great result. Then on my bobbin, the thread that I'm using is bottom line, the number is 624. I love the bottom line thread in my bobbin. I do all of my machine quilting on a Gammill 22-inch machine. I'm stitching in the stitch regulated mode, and I have my stitch length set at 12 stitches per inch. Let's get stitching. I'll start out this quilt block design by stitching in the ditch all the way around the outside of the block. I am using So Fine color number 402 thread on this quilt on the whole entire quilt top. Because this is a class sample, that's why I did choose to use just one thread color. If you want, you can change thread colors. It will just change the path of your stitching slightly. However, I feel like the So Fine thread blends so nicely that if you do use just one color like I am here, overall you're still going to end up with a really cool quilt. Once I have completed the stitch in the ditch around the outside of the block, now I'm going to move towards the center. Stitching along the side of that first yellow triangle, I'll stitch in the ditch all the way around the outside of the block. Once I've stitched in the ditch around the outside of the block, I am going to fill in this block with evenly spaced straight lines. These lines are going to be evenly spaced a ½ inch apart. So I'll line up my machine quilting ruler so the first marked line is right along the ditch. And then from there, I'll work across the block, travel up the tile, up the ditch, and then from there, repeat that process until I fill in that unit completely. If your lines are evenly spaced a ½ inch apart, you should have 3 of those lines stitched through those triangle units. Once I've stitched those, then from that point, after I've stitched those first 2 triangles, now I'm going to stitch an arrow through the light pink outside unit. I'll stitch right up to the center, adjust my ruler, and stitch to the opposite corner. Now from there, then I'm going to travel to the next upper corner. In that upper corner, I'm going to stitch point-to-point curved lines using the largest curve on the mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. Once I've done that, worked my way all the way around, from the outside corner, I'm going to fill in with figure 8s from the corner, working my way through the center, getting larger as I get to the center, and then smaller again as I work to the opposite corner. Once I've filled in that block completely, now I'm going to stitch in the ditch along the outside of that blue block, working my way now around the yellow triangle, where I'll stitch in the ditch around that yellow triangle and then fill it in with those evenly spaced straight lines. Now again, my lines are going to be a ½ inch apart, so I'm using the markings on my machine quilting ruler. Notice that those lines, so they do alternate directions, so they're going to appear as if they're coming right out from the center star on all 4 sides of the block. Once I stitch that first yellow triangle, I'll travel to the next light pink triangle on the outside. And then after I've stitched that one, I'll stitch in the ditch around the yellow triangle, where then I'll again stitch those evenly spaced straight lines. From that point, now I'm going to travel to the next corner blue block, where I'm going to stitch this corner block just like we did the first one. So I'll start out by stitching those point-to-point curved lines using the largest curve on the mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler. When I've worked my way all the way around stitching those straight lines, then again, starting in that top corner, I'll start out stitching those figure eights. Do notice the direction that I am quilting these figure eights. So I want them to start on the outside corner and then end on the opposite outside corner. You don't want to start them up in the top corner of the block or the actual corners of the block, because then it won't create kind of this cohesive look like it's swirling all the way around. So I am stitching each of these figure eight units so that they look kind of like a swirling design around the outside of the block. Once I've completed that block, then I'll travel down to the next yellow triangle, where I'll repeat the same process, filling it in with those evenly spaced straight lines. From there, like I've done on the yellow and the other light pink units, I'll stitch straight lines and light pink filling in with the arrow. From there, I'm going to move to the corner, where I'll again stitch those point-to-point curves and fill it in with the figure eights. Once I've completed that unit, now I'm going to travel to the remaining yellow and light pink triangles, and I'll fill those in with the straight lines and the arrow. Notice I did skip that light pink unit, so I will need to come back and stitch on that unit. But for now, we're going to move on and stitch those point-to-point curves on the blue block all the way around. Once I've stitched those point-to-point curves on the blue block, I am going to go right into the center unit. Using the medium curve on the mini 4-in-1 machine quilting ruler, I'm going to stitch point-to-point curves around that center 4 patch on my quilt block. Starting at the outside, I'll work to the center. From the center, then I'll work out, stitching kind of a melon-shaped motif through the center of the block. Once I've stitched that, then I'll create a border all the way around the outside, again using the medium curve, stitching point to point, working my way around the outside of the block. From that point, I'm going to travel along the ditch to move back to the outside of the block where I can fill in that last blue corner unit with those figure eights. Once I've finished those figure eights, stitched all the way across the block, then I can go and complete the stitching on that final light pink background block. I hope you all found a little bit of inspiration from today's block. Now, if you do want even more inspiration, another version how to quilt this quilt block, make sure you do check out my Patreon page, patreon.com/Natalia Bonner. Over there, I've got another version of this block plus a whole lot more of machine quilting inspiration. You'll see here, I am still doing just a little bit of stitching. After I was done with the block unit, I decided that I did want to stitch in the ditch through the center of that center 4-patch. So I worked my way up there and stitched in the ditch. Have a great day, everybody.